This video is just going to be me yapping on about my Canto 9 theories. Spoilers, Canto 5, 6, and 8. So my first prediction, Ryoshu's goal is to cut off all the fingers. I'm talking about the syndicates. This is mainly when she says all the way to the pinky, and I'm thinking that sentence is incomplete and the whole thing would probably be like, cut off the fingers all the way to the pinky. This is nothing to back it up since the few times we've encountered fingers, Ryoshu seemed chill about it, like she was just talking about something she saw or experienced before. When we encounter the rings, she seems far too calm when talking to them, and only gets angry when she talks about how they're pretending to be Ophi. She was also asking if a maestro was involved, and she was mentioning this a lot to the ring, which could mean that there's a pinky part of the ring. When we meet the middle, she calls Ricardo a bitch, and then gladly accepts her death. When we meet members of the Thumb, she's mad that they disrespected her and are affiliated with Lei Hang. These last points make my first prediction fall flat since their goal probably isn't to cut down all the fingers. So is their goal to kill everyone part of the pinky? That can't be right since we learned Konkyu's part of the pinky, same with Zilu, and she didn't want to kill him. Could be specific members like Lei Hang, but her saying all the way to the pinky wouldn't make too much sense unless she's talking about corruption or something to that effect. We can look at egos since we know that egos represent a part of the sinner, be it their goals or their motivations. An example of this is Ishmael and her ego blind obsession for obvious reasons. We could look at egos such as Thorkalgia and Contempt Awe for Ryoshu. The Thorkalgia ego is based on Sleeping Bag of a Bygone Day, which I think is a representation of someone who's forced to live in so much pain that breathing hurts. This could show that Ryoshu's holding in a lot of pain about her past and projects that pain physically onto people we fight, or we could see that pain in the works of art that she makes. We also see some of that pain burst out when we first meet Lei Hang, with how Ryoshu's grabbing her sword and ready to unsheath it. Contempt Awe is probably a stretch, but I'm throwing this in there anyway since it's a WAV that looks cool as shit. Contempt Awe is based off Spiral of Contempt, and Spiral of Contempt is an abnormality that attacks people for looking at it because they aren't worthy enough to look at the spiral. You know who else uses Contempt Awe? Jia Huan. We see him wearing Contempt Awe's suit and weapon. We also know from his personality that he sees Honglu as someone who is less than dirt and calls himself the rightful heir to the family. Contempt Awe Ryoshu is representing a superiority complex. In Canto 2, Dante mentions, she treats my words with less respect than she would a wad of gum. In that same canto, there's a scene where Ryoshu describes how to make art that traumatized everyone. In Canto 3, when Dawn is pummeling Sinclair, Ryoshu says to let them duke it out since they aren't worth enough to break up the fight. In Hell's Chicken, Ryoshu compares Dante's head to a Bongi's. When Yisang says he won't choose when picking a side in the cook-off, Ryoshu just says, you take him. There's more examples out there, but that'd take too long to say every example out loud. Now obviously, I forgot to mention the biggest abnormality that's related to Ryoshu. Spider-Bud. She's got 2 egos and a whole ID with Spider-Bud. Spider-Bud is an abnormality that is very protective over her children. Should you hurt or kill these children, Spider-Bud will get retribution by cocooning you for her kids to eat. Now this tells us Ryoshu is very protective of her children, but also that she cares deeply about them. Weirdly though, these egos are Teth and Ichi, which could suggest she doesn't fully line up with these, the abnormality's beliefs. But the ID Uptai story has Ryoshu talking to Spider-Bud. And there she says, one does not choose their birth parent, yet they're born with and saddled with the responsibility to live within their bounds. Which I think is Ryoshu doing a little bit of self-reflection, thinking that she might be too strict or too lax with her parenting. But I got no idea until Canto 9 rolls around, so we might do something in the intervals. Another interesting point from the story is, unless you're merely a pathetic, fallen shell of a thing who can do nothing but grandstand, if you really consider these babies to be your family, shouldn't you be attacking me by now? Which suggests she would turn someone into a beautiful piece of art should they slight her children in any way, but seems to judge Spider-Bud for not acting when her children are in danger. Also seems to respect Spider-Bud as well, parent to parent. After working with it, she gently picks off the little spiders one by one on her and puts them back down. Now this could just be her trying not to get killed by Spider-Bud, but I think this is a form of respect. Another thing to talk about is how Ryoshi uses penance. Now this could just be a reference to Gebra, or it could be Ryoshi using it as like some form of repentance, like making up for a past, but I got no idea and I have no proof of it, so, you know. Now I'll talk about what we can see in Limbus from Ryoshu's source material, Hellscreen. The character Ryoshu's based on is called Yoshide. Now, from now on, to differentiate the characters, when I'm talking about Ryoshu, I'm talking about the one from Limbus, and when I say Yoshide, I'm talking about the one from Hellscreen. Yoshide in the book is described to be an old man who cares deeply for his daughter, but is cold to the rest of the world. He cares so much for his daughter that when people ask to marry her, it's rumors that he pays gangs to beat them up. His daughter is working for the Emperor at this time, and the Emperor likes his daughter in a weird way. Yoshide also absolutely locks in when painting to the point where he doesn't go outside, just a laser focus. Now, skip around the story a little, the Emperor tells Yoshide to make a painting of hell, so Yoshide goes around sketching rotting corpses, tortures his apprentices by chaining them down, or having them being mauled by horned owls because he needs to see something before he paints it. Eventually, Yoshide reaches a point where the painting is 80% done, but he can't finish the last 20. So he goes to the Emperor to ask for help. Yoshide asks the Emperor to show him a beautiful woman burning in a noble carriage. The Emperor, being a piece of shit, decides to throw his daughter in the carriage and burn her to comply with Yoshide's request. After Yoshide saw his daughter die, he finished the painting, but after he finished the painting, he... Sorry about that clip, but YouTube has gone so restricting with specific words that it's basically taboo now. You're generally better off avoiding heavy topics because this platform is so dystopian. Something I forgot to mention is that there's also a monkey named Yoshide who's the pet of the daughter, and also a well-liked pet at the Emperor's estate. The monkey's pretty protective of the daughter, and at the end of the story, the monkey jumps into the burning carriage and dies trying to save her. My personal idea is that it represents Yoshide's parental instincts or his love, and well, I don't really got much else to say, that's just me. There's a part of the story that I didn't talk about, and that's because I don't have the skill to talk about it with respect, so please go read Hellscreen if you want to know about it. It's 24 pages, really short, go check it out. You can even find a free read. I don't know if that's illegal or not, so have fun. So what things from Hellscreen can we see in game? Olympus is probably going to pick up just before the burning carriage, and we can assume it's at that point due to the spider house being mentioned and like Hank saying the baby is still at that house. And due to how important fire seems, it's probably going to be a canto based around burn. Characters we're probably going to see are definitely the Emperor, definitely the daughter, maybe the monkey, well, probably the monkey, some servants, and maybe some apprentices. It could be made out that Ryoshu just killed all of them or something. So, a theory I have is that the Emperor pulled strings for Ryoshu to get into whatever position she needed to be in. Examples would be corporations, associations, and fingers. And this is all for her to get more experience for her to make the Hellscreen. But we can assume the Emperor's in a high position of power, judging by the fact that he got her a position there, and we can also assume that he knows the truth about the warp trains. We can also assume that he got her the job, because if he knows the truth about the warp trains, he probably sent her there to get more experience. And Ryoshu never really seems fazed by the gore that she sees. Jia Kong mentions that Ryoshu walks the path of Asura, so that could suggest that Ryoshu plans to destroy the Emperor and everything around him. But the only knowledge I have of Asura is Wrath of Asura. Off topic, but that game is amazing with all its cutscenes. 6-hour movie night, I recommend it. Even though it's really long. With Ryoshu wanting to destroy everything around the Emperor, this could mean the Pinky is controlled by the Emperor, or all the way to the Pinky could now mean wanting to burn everything down, all the way to the Pinky. Expanding on this, Ryoshu being on the path of Asura could mean that people who are loosely related to the Emperor or people who have no connection to the Emperor are going to be caught up in Ryoshu's wrath, like people who are just part of the empire itself. We will see Ryoshu unsheath her sword, like a Bankai, and possibly let out all the anger that she's been holding in. Now, a big question about this entire canto is, who's the antagonist? I'm gonna pick the obvious answer and just say it's the Emperor, given that he killed Yoshide's daughter, and the Emperor is a cruel piece of shit. Because according to a servant, he killed Yoshide's daughter because he had the audacity to ask, to burn a noble carriage, which could be why Ryoshu's child's at the Spider House. Ryoshu had the audacity to ask for something so outrageous the Emperor was offended. Now, these all have something behind them, like some kind of evidence to provide, like, why this could happen. So I'm gonna throw some random prediction in. The carriage is an abnormality. Am I gonna explain? No, figure it out. Have a good day, check me out on Twitch, like and subscribe or something. Thank you for watching.
Oh man!